I want to emphasize especially the role of the Eighth Commandment in the context of a worshipful life. All of the commandments ultimately aim at our worship of God. When we respect authority and life and intimacy of human beings, we are really respecting the authority and the life and the intimacy that God has designed and given to people. And in the same way, the Eighth Commandment teaches us to respect property as a respect for what God has given, both us and others, so that we may serve Him well and so that both we and the people around us may prosper. The same people who made a show of abstaining from some food and other luxuries for religious reasons did not provide their workers with fair pay, with reasonable expectations, with opportunities to take good care of themselves and their families. And the Lord did not appreciate that kind of fasting. What good are your pious gestures in the temple? What good is your lying down in ashes if at home and at work you do not give your fellow man proper respect and support? And perhaps you think, well, at least it's not really stealing. And we could have a discussion about whether bad treatment of your workers is sin against the Fifth Commandment or the Sixth Commandment or the Eighth Commandment. Really, it doesn't matter much. The number doesn't matter. What matters is it's injustice in the eyes of the Lord. Even if we have the legal right to treat workers in a poor way, it does not make it right. Keeping workers at unreasonably low pay, demanding long hours from them, it may be tolerated by the law to an extent. But the Bible calls it injustice because it is the stealing of their livelihood and their time and their energy. Another example, postponing payments for some time. It may be illegal for employers to do. And in some businesses, it's pretty common that you only get paid after you have completed the work. But the Bible prohibits it. And so the Lord says in verse 6, here's the kind of fasting I want to see. Here's the kind of fasting I have chosen: to loose the chains of injustice and to untie the cords of the yoke and to set the oppressed free and to break every yoke. In other words, put an end to unjust, inhumane, and improper treatment of the people who depend on you. Stop denying others what you owe them. Stop denying them respect for their person, but also respect for their work and their time and their property. The Lord does not ask you to jump through all kinds of hoops to worship Him. That's not the point. You don't have to do what verse 5 says. You don't have to bow one's head like a reed and lie down on sackcloth and ashes. The Lord does not ask you to jump through those hoops, but He insists on fairness and justice and kindness and generosity. A charitable attitude is required of every Christian. And we are to give freely and generously. Not to do so is a violation of the Eighth Commandment, and it is tantamount to stealing. Stinginess may not be illegal under Canadian law, but the Bible calls it immoral and unjust. But then you can ask, well, isn't the whole point of our possessions, isn't the whole point of our private property that we get to decide what to do with it? Isn't it given to us? Well, certainly. But precisely in the decisions that we may and must make, we show where our heart is. Precisely in how we deal with the stuff that we have, we can show respect for others and for our God. Or you can show disdain and disrespect. Precisely because we have private property, how we deal with it is the moral question that we must answer in good conscience before the Lord. precisely in whether or not we are generous to those in need. We can be imitators of the God who blessed us, or we can reject his generosity to us. Stealing is strongly forbidden in God's law, but generosity is commanded, equally forcefully. You see, there are only two possible attitudes to property and possessions. We can hold on to our stuff and labor and toil to pile up wealth and hoard it for ourselves and for our own enjoyment, and eventually it will become our God, the cruel, never satisfying God Mammon. Or we can hold on to our God and work for him and learn from him how to use our time, energy, and money to bless others. And then we will find out that he blesses us all the more as we do so. So it comes down to the question, as it always does: whom do you live for? In whom do you trust? Do you live for yourself, as the pagans do, believing that you lose out unless you fend for yourself? Or do you live for the Lord, trusting that he will provide as you help others?